Good evening, everyone. Today's meeting is open to the public, and a warm welcome to all of you, and thank you very much for coming. My name is Councillor Gail Smith, and I represent the Mosborough Ward, and I am the chair of this LAC for the forthcoming year. Before I ask other councillors to introduce themselves, I'll hand over to Democratic Services to read out the housekeeping arrangements, please.
Thank you, Chair. Please can I request that mobile telephones and other such equipment is switched to silent mode as to not disturb the conduct of the meeting. There is no fire test planned for today. If there is an emergency evacuation, please take instruction from the council staff present. The toilet facilities are to the right of the stage. The meeting today is open to the public and will be streamed live and for subsequent broadcast via the council's website. You should be aware that the council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during this webcast will be retained in accordance with the council's published policy. By entering this meeting room, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of images and sound recordings for webcasting. One final thing to mention, we have hearing loops available. If you would like to use one, please let us know. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I now ask members and officers to introduce themselves around this table, starting with you on.
Councillor Anne Woolhouse for Bayton.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Curtis Crossland for Bayton.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Ian Horner, Bayton Councillor, and I'm also the Deputy Chair.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jane Falls. I'm the South East Local Area Committee's Service Manager.
J. Bell, Democratic Services.
Councillor Matt Dwyer, Burley Ward.
Good evening, and my name is Councillor Tony Downing. I'm Councillor for Mosborough Ward.
And I'm Councillor Alison Norris, and I'm Councillor for Woodhouse Ward.
Thank you, colleagues. Before we proceed with the agenda, I'd like to explain how we're going to run the meeting. First, we will deal with the formal business of apologies, declarations of interest and minutes of the previous meeting. Then we'll receive the presentation from environmental groups on current environmental projects. We will then receive the public questions or petitions before we finally move on to the South East Local Area Committee Spend Report. So we do have some apologies. Apologies are from Councillor Chapman, Councillor Fox, Councillor McGowan, Councillor Mick Rooney and Councillor Paul Wood. I thought somebody was talking in here. It's a plain bingo. Are there any declarations of interest, please? No? Yeah, excellent. Press and public. We now move on to exclusion of press and public to identify where resolutions may be moved to exclude the press and public. There are none. So we're moving on to minutes of the last meeting. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3, although they're not numbered right. Sorry, what's happened here? So, sorry, we move on to page 5. Anything on page 6? Page 7. Page 9. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13, page 14, page 15, 16, 17 and 18. Yeah, can we approve those minutes, please? Yeah. Thank you. Right, so we now have a presentation from the environmental groups on the current environmental projects we are doing in the southeast of the city.
It's Rowan that's the first one.
Rowan?
Good evening, everyone. It's fantastic to be here. I'm Rowan Longhurst. I'm the Service Manager for Countryside in the Parks and Countryside Service. Just been asked to give a very short update on some key projects that we're involved with and really excited and passionate about in the South East. Next slide, please. So before we move on to the overview of projects, I'd just really briefly like to talk about the local nature recovery strategy. This is something that affects us all across the whole city and across the region. We can share obviously this slide and the links in this slide because it's really important to us this is shared as widely as possible to your groups, to other networks you might be connected with in the area. This is a piece of work that is delivered and led by the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, and its focus is on prioritising nature recovery across the region and obviously for Sheffield. So there is a live public engagement period open now and well into October. There's a survey we would love you to complete, just a few minutes, an interactive map where you can pin projects and ideas, and also 3 in-person events over the next few months. One is at Meadowhall, one is at Fox Valley, and one is at the Botanic Gardens. So we'd really love you to be involved and really encourage you to be involved because this is a really important piece of strategic work that helps us guide and prioritise nature recovery in Sheffield. So we'll make sure those links have gone out if you've not received them through other networks you might be connected to. So on just briefly, the next update relates to the Shirebrook Valley Species Survival Project. Some of you may be aware of this. This is a really exciting DEFRA project. We were one of few nationally to make the cut for this project. The project is well underway now. We've got lots of staff now in place who are coordinating the education and engagement side of things. A grazing coordinator, our ranger is in post and already getting cracking with existing groups on the ground. And we have a number of partners we're also working with. So the sites this covers is the Shirebrook Valley itself, Woodhouse Washlands, Bayton Marsh, Silkstone Ravine. We're delighted to be working with partners Woodhouse Forum, Sheffield and Rotherham Wildlife Trust, Sheffield Hallam, who are already out filming, Sheffield Sustainability Centre. And a big thank you to key funders as well, National Grid, to the LAC itself, the Friends of Richmond Park and many others. So this project will be running for the next 18 months or so. It has a focus on habitat improvements, as you can probably guess by the title, to try and help improve habitats for species along the valley. But you should also be excited about volunteering and engagement and educational activities too. I'll just draw your attention to the community fund point at the end there. We'll be sharing more details about that in the new year, but it links really well into this evening's themes. Part of the bid included a pot that would allow us to cascade small grants to groups in the area who are passionate as well about sort of habitat enhancements and engagement activities within the local community. So, yeah, we'll be sharing details of that in the new year, but it'd be great to take some of the ideas that we hear tonight for the sites that we're able to fund in the area. Also happening in the southeast, we're focusing on meadow improvements along the Ockerdike corridor. It's really great to see Adrian from SCCT here. Do you mind waving, Adrian? I did check this with him before. Please talk to Adrian. We're supporting Adrian and his team to work with local groups in the southeast along the Ockerdike corridor, or basically any other groups in the area. Adrian and his team have a fabulous amount of expertise when it comes to conservation and working in this side of the city. So big thank you to Adrian. I did also check I could include his email. It's on there. Please note it down. Get in touch if you are passionate about projects in the southeast that you think Adrian's team can support with, and volunteering. So much expertise in this area. Our community forestry team have just finished watering. You can probably imagine they don't need to do any more watering, although this typically is the time of year where they're focusing on maintaining trees. They're planning their activities for the autumn and winter period in terms of tree and hedgerow planting. That focuses on where we have a sort of a lack or where canopy cover in the city is not as high as other sides of the city. They have already got some projects earmarked in Flockton Park and Linley Bank. All of those details are available. Again, you register for those through Eventbrite just so that the team can know who's coming and can manage numbers. So those are just the key things to have on your radar for the coming, dare I say it, autumn-winter period. So myself, colleagues from the Parks and Countryside Service are here all evening. My colleague Simon Ross, Service Manager, Parks and Public Realm, and Sarah Newman, who's the project officer, one of our project officers for the Species Survival Project. So we're delighted to be here and really excited to hear your ideas for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Not taking questions. Can I ask Dan if he wants to speak, please? Thank you, Ron. That was very interesting.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Whittaker. I'm a project officer in Street Scene and Regulations. I'm going to talk about the environmental stewardship programme that we've got running here in the southeast. Just wait for the slides. So it's a partnership project being delivered with the local area committee, Streets Ahead, Streets Ahead, which falls under the Street Scene and Regulations, Lifelong Learning and Skills, and AMY. As you can see, this is ideally a 12-week programme aimed at young people who are NEET, not in education, employment and training. They do 2 days a week with an AMY supervisor, doing various bits of green work across the area. Could be clearing sites of fly tipping, hedgerows, some mowing, edging work, various different bits. They get all the training and equipment provided by AMY, and they do a day a week with lifelong learning and skills, doing their English, maths and employability skills. It's been funded through 1 year through the like 100k, community infrastructure levy money, and fly tipping and graffiti funding. The project's based on a pilot that was run in the northeast of the city. That's been successful, and it's been moved over to the east and southeast. Example of some of the work's been done so far by them. by the stewards. The stewards are volunteers in essence because they receive no payment for the work they've done. Another site here, you can see some of the bits they can do. What's really good about this project is that they are tasked directly by the LAC. So again, if you had a particular area that you've got concerns for, as you can see here, overgrown bushes that were blocking a ramped access, I would suggest you'd contact either your local members or the LAC inbox directly, and it'll be tasked through them if it's a suitable site for them to look at doing. It is a really, really good project. We've seen fantastic outcomes in terms of the work done so far, but also for the young people. This really builds a lot of self-esteem for the young people involved. We had one of the young people that took part in the pilot in the northeast of the city start the project with 0 qualifications, came on and has really just started his apprenticeship with Amy. That wouldn't have been a possibility without him engaging in this programme, spending some real quality one-to-one time in terms of having a mentor in his supervisor. So it's a fantastic opportunity for the young people. That's the last slide, isn't it, Alan? Yeah. So that's really it, to be honest. It is funded for a year. As a service from, in terms of street scene, we're really keen of this project to expand and exploring ways to expand it. Yeah, and it is a quick, quite direct way of getting some really difficult work cleared where we've not got the capacity to do it from other services, and work quite closely in partnership with services like Simon's in terms of some green spaces where parks haven't got capacity. A couple of things we're working on for the near future. So we've got the Urban Street Tree Festival. I think it's towards the end of November. So we're currently working with the Forestry Service and the LAC teams to identify some areas where maybe we could get the stewards involved in some planting, just enhancing the experience of the young people. So hopefully they become community activists and also a bit of passion for environmental works going forward. Any questions?
I think we'd save questions till the end.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, got someone else to speak first, Mike. Mike, I'm going to save questions till the end of the presentation. Sorry. Courtney.
Hiya, so I'm part of the South East LAC team, and we want to hear from you. Essentially, the South East LAC team have got £17,000 for us to spend on environmental projects across the South East, so Bayton, Burley, Mosborough and Woodhouse. But that money is for yourself and the wider community to decide on how we spend it. Oh, that is so tiny, I'm so sorry. Apologies. Obviously, environmental projects, these can be a huge range of things. So obviously, the ones that probably pop to your mind straight away are like litter picking, more poo bins, allotments, garden development, things like that. But we can really look at a huge, wide range of environmental schemes. So these can be looking at how we can use environmental to help with green social prescribing, how we can create apps, for example, to promote the use of our green spaces and safe spaces, what nature there is in the local area to look out for signs, allotment developing, and there's some examples in wider Sheffield that this has been done in, sensory garden adaptations, so much, and really do think outside the box. It can really cover a lot of different projects. So we're really, really wanting to hear from you how you would like to spend this money. So on the tables in front of you there should be some post-it notes. So if you've either got any ideas that you would like to see changes or projects being developed, or if there are current projects that you know of that are going on that need some extra funding, please do write these down and just pop them on the post-it notes and stick them on the pieces of paper. If you would like to leave a contact detail on there as well, please feel free to, so we can get back to you, but you don't have to. But essentially, we have £17,000 to spend across the ward, so please tell us how you would like it spent, so we can make some exciting environmental projects happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Courtney. So what we're going to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm going to take some questions and comments, and then we've got some questions that you've all got on your table that we'd like you to discuss and then write what you want on the paper. Is that okay? Right. So, Mike, would you like to tell us your comment, please?
We were litter picking last Saturday and thought, golly gosh, somebody's tidied this area up. And I gave the credit to our friends in Amy. I said, I'm sure it's not parts of Woodlands, it must be Amy. And lo and behold, revealed tonight is who's done the job, I suspect. Was it Westfield Shops who did? Thank you, Scott. It made a smashing job. It hasn't been done for years and years and years, and even the litter looked like it had been removed by somebody before they put the string around. So, like, what do we do next? And there's plenty of rubbish to find, but so pleased to come to a meeting tonight and find out where the credit should go. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any other questions?
Thank you. Sandra Farrell-Smith from Althorpe Conservation Group. I'd like to ask, is it Dan? Yeah. About the Stewardship Environment Project. We've had an area in Althorpe that we've been threatening to clear for ages in one of the woodlands that's got a lot of polystyrene and tree guards in it. I didn't quite catch where we need to contact if we've got. Did you say that we could contact you?
So if you the South East Lac inbox, it's probably the best way, and Scott or Courtney will be in touch with you. Sorry, thank you. The South East Lac inbox would be the best place to contact. At which point they'd raise that site with the members, and hopefully push it forward. They'd go out with the AMI supervisor, see if it's something that the stewards will be able to do, and move it forward.
Anybody else got any questions? Mr. Meredith.
My question is about funding. When you mentioned that you got £17,000 to do all this work, my question to the council is, our area takes in Crystal Peaks, Meadow Hall, lots of firms, lots of houses, millions of pounds pour into the council. Why hasn't this young lady got 170,000 rather than 17 to do the project? Why are they so underfunded?
Yeah, I'm going to pass that on to my colleague.
So there's 7 local area committees across the city, and each local area committee is allocated £100,000 on projects, to look at projects. The projects are based on whatever are the key themes that have come out of the consultation that's taken place. So within the South East, the key themes that came out was crime and community safety, then environment, then children and families, and health and well-being. So as a group, as a local area committee, and you'll see as we go further on, it's at the end at this time, a decision was taken how that £100,000 was broken down, and it was weighted with the response rate that came back from the consultation that we did last year. So crime and community safety was the top theme, by a massive percentage, so that was weighted with more of the funding. The environmental element was given 17,000 last year, and the recommendation is it's given 17,000 this year. Unfortunately, I'm sure we would love it if there was more money, but that's all we have as a lack. There's £100,000 that we have to share up accordingly.
No, sadly, but that's the way it is, I'm afraid. Any more questions? Okay, well, I'm going to ask my colleagues to take a seat at your tables, and we're going to go through these questions on the paper, and then we'll get back to continue the rest of the meeting. Because we haven't got a lot of time, but we would like to listen to some of your ideas. And is it who's speaking? Well, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So your table first.
You're done. Sorry. The first question: what do you like and dislike about your environment? Without being negative, we found a lot of dislikes, but not in a terrible way, and we struggled to find some good things, but eventually we got lots of green spaces, things like the environment groups, the litter picking groups. It's really good sense of community and community spirit and things. Like Peyton as an example, Fortnight and Saturday's got an orchard day, so events such as that are really good. The dislikes were underused. What's the not always, Caroline?
And not always
No, it's gone over. Not always well maintained. Lack of children around in the holidays and things. Why aren't the children out there? What's putting them off? Are they doing other things? Undesirable people and congregate, yeah. Litter picking's not always collected quickly, so people volunteer to do the litter picking. A week later it's still there in a big pile that foxes have got to, so I do lots of other things in community litter picking. I haven't done much of, but I would feel really disheartened if I'd spent 2 hours on a Saturday and it's still there a week later, all spread out. So what would we like to see more of? More dog bins, signs, posters, perhaps involving schools and children. More community days, things like the Orchard Day in different areas. Maybe a best kept garden competition. Sunflower growing competitions for Bacon Gala. Plant more... Sorry? Flowers, sorry. All right, I am waiting for an eye operation, sorry, around the area.
I'll vouch for that.
Yeah. And so like the bins I mentioned at a LAC meeting about a year ago, these lovely Luke Horton bins that's all over Sheffield, but Peyton always misses out. We haven't got them. These coloured bins. Even other simple signs like I'm driving through Manor and Manor Top today, there's a big sign, welcome to Manor Top. So there's not much pride in this area. You haven't got a drive here and this is the area that you're in. We always seem to miss out on things like that. Would you like to get involved? So one of the things was about perhaps having businesses and shops and not having hanging baskets. Have you any thoughts or ideas? The Ockerdike could be cleared. We'll get hanging baskets again around the area. No More May, Wild Havens, like they've got in Rotherham. And we were just discussing that, and I know that's problematic for all the ones that like it, like me. There's loads that don't, because it ends up looking a mess. And is that BMX?
Yeah.
BMX track on the Flower Estate, Grange Road, Bayton. So our bit here, we're Bayton, we've not got much more representation here from South East apart from Janet Woodhouse. So I'm sure some other groups will be talking about Althorpe and places like that. Have I missed anything? No? Okay, there you go then.
Thank you for your feedback. Can we move over to this table, please?
So the likes are the apple orchard and the various tree pruning workshops that have been delivered across the 2 orchards in this area. Great walks, particularly along to Althorpe. Plenty of green space and the Althorpe Heritage and Nature Trail. The dislikes were too much development in S20, air pollution, litter and hedges not being cut, the misuse of green space through antisocial behaviour such as e-bikes and quads, dog fouling, and so quad bikes again, and there's an action for us to share how that can be reported. We had some ideas, so skipping to the end, about the ideas of projects, so the CO2 detectors to monitor levels, so that relates back to the air pollution point for sort of evidence to support that. Another area, LAC area, has discussed thermal imaging cameras, which show where improvements can be made for the energy efficiency of homes, and linking to that the opportunity for solar panels wherever possible, whether that's access for private residents or the opportunities within the council's housing stock to improve provision of solar.
Thank you. We move on to the third table, please.
We've broken the mould, Chair. We're on post-it notes. So, I've been nominated. Let me find one I can read easily. Buggy walk. Sorry, we're talked quite a bit. Well, we had a very useful talk. We had two colleagues, one of whom is here. I miss your names, unfortunately, and another one not far away. But it was really helpful. Oh, it was one of our councillors, yes. Where's she gone?
She's in.
Oh,
She's
Anne. How could I miss you? Anyway, Anne, thank you. I hope to thank you both for being with us. A buggy walk and talk session we thought would be helpful, and I'll go on to promotion, especially with schools. We feel that, I'm not a school governor now, but schools are the start of encouraging people to not throw litter down and learn about bugs, not to stand on them, but to pick them up and look at them. And if you've got a little a glass to look at them through, gosh, they've got 8 legs instead of 2 legs, and etc. So a buggy walk and talk session, promotion especially with schools, I think they go together. The Westfield Stream area was talked about, and the green area around the stream. In fact, the area that's been cut very nicely and neatly by colleagues, where have you gone, who did the work, involves Shortbrook School. Scott, where are you? Yes, we've already tapped him up for that. Meadow Creation, use seeds from Shire Brook. What a good idea. I don't know who wrote that, but... Oh, of course, yes. So, what a good idea. Let's use seeds so that we have our own natural pastures, that whatever thrives in our pastures actually we use more of. A music session? Who was that?
Lady here.
A music, you can tell I'm the best spokesman that you could get. A music session for babies, for babies and children as well. What a good idea. Connectors.
No, concertinis. They're called concertinis.
Who's invented that word? Concertinis?
Yeah.
I bet
Come on,
the
Mike,
staff don't know what to write down for that. Concertinis. Work with fast food. Oh, yes, this is a baby of mine, yeah. I haven't written this. Work with fast food stores to clear up tipped rubbish, because sometimes, very kindly, Morrison's don't take all their trolleys away from Westfield, and I use one because I can't carry my bag full of stuff, because they're enormous, those bags, those litter bags. So I use a trolley, but sometimes the rubbish is too big for the trolley as well as my bag full of stuff. So work with fast food stores to clear up fly tip rubbish, because it happens, and unfortunately people are a bit mad about it. had somebody harass me last Saturday about, why have you got that rubbish? And I said, I think I haven't got a lorry with me, I've only got a trolley. Woodhouse Marsh. A long time ago, I and lots of others went to Woodhouse Marsh, and we were looking for harvest mouse nests. And I actually found one after about 3 or 4 years of attempts. But Peter Wostenholme, a lovely colleague that most of us know, Peter took a photograph of me with an expression of shock and a harvest mouse nest. I'd never seen one in my hand before. I hope we can do that. It involves volunteers and or folks that you know that I don't know now. But outdoor toddler groups, what a good idea. Den building. Who came up with that? What such a good idea. Some of us who know the National Trust started encouraging that years ago. They leave bits of wood around and encourage the children to occupy themselves rather than badgering the parents for fast food, but actually building into the bottom of trees. What a terrific idea. And it's all about we can survive in the open space. Yes, there are bugs and etc. Most of them in Britain don't bite you and kill you. It's, you know, so sorry, colleagues, but it's all on our post-it notes rather than the proper plan. Thank you very much.
And last but not least, table 4, please.
Right, so on this table, we had the likes where the verges aren't being mowed, but they thought it was a very good compromise this year. They're having a little strip put in them to compromise between the people that do want them mowed. The negatives of the verges not being mowed is the hidden litter amongst it. Althorpe, community litter picking and taking pride in the area was a massive positive as well, and in Hackenthorpe as well. And there's a want to support these groups more through providing them with the proper equipment to help them with the litter picking as well, and making it more obvious where litter picking freebies are and the locations known, for example, in the libraries, but also making these locations wider across these areas as well. Another big positive was all the work that Adrian does, and also how nice it is that each individual area has its own volunteers and own pride. Dislikes were for Althorpe, the fly tipping near where the new CCTV cameras have gone up, but it was also commented on how actually since new CCTV cameras have gone up there does seem to be less fly tipping, and also burning in the areas not being clean burning and the problems that come with this as well. And they'd like to see more of people being engaged with the outdoors and the volunteering, more open days such as the apple picking day. We've got great assets, but they need looking after. For example, the fruit trees being pruned properly, and just general better asset management. Want to see more bird, bat and owl boxes around Opera Corridor. More nature walks and getting young people involved with these. Push for more volunteers getting involved and just getting people more involved in general in the area. And it's nice to see that there are good medical links with the medical centres, and that medical centres are encouraging people to get out. And then, just looking over, projects that they'd like to see being more encouraged and supported is linking with people, people keeping well scheme, and then the S20 corridor, making it into a proper green corridor with the additions of more bat and bird boxes, more wildflowers, more hedgerow laying, and more of the rustic benches as well. With the Althorpe Fields, there's a lot of self-set trees. Which specific? In general. They need better management, don't they? Okay. And the tree canopies need cutting back and pruning and pollarding as well. And in general, it would be nice to see more guidance and support for the groups that are already working in these areas as well.
Thank you very much. Has anybody got anything to add that they've not thought to write down? No? Okay, well, I think that was very interesting, and I'm sure we need your paperwork so that we can make sure we've got everything to feed back. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Claire. So we're now moving on to item 7 on the agenda. It is a feedback from and an update from Carl Malooly, who was the head of the Community Services in Sheffield.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. So, good evening, everybody. Yeah, my name's Carl Malooly. I'm Head of Service for Local Area Committees. I'm going to just have a bit of a discussion item now around these actual public meetings which we are in attendance for today. So just as a bit of background for those of you that may or may not be aware, so local area committees, the public meetings started in 2021, and there are 4 meetings held for each of the committees, and they are rotated around each of the wards over the financial year. Now, the purpose when the meetings were first established was to engage, empower and enable local residents and communities, and to bring decision-making into the heart of the community. So that was the aims when we started off on this journey. Okay, so we've been holding a number of workshops with elected members and officers around the council to sort of reflect on what the journey so far and what's happened so far. So what have we learned in terms of positives? So the meetings have evolved based on feedback, and I think the example there where we've just had this workshop where there's discussions with council on the table is a good example of that. We've been more flexible with the agendas, so obviously we do have formal business to do as part of these meetings, but actually we've not always put that to the front to try and engage and encourage people to attend. We've themed meetings to make them relevant to the local area, so to make sure that people are engaged, and it's important to those local areas because across the whole city there are different issues and different things that people want to talk about. It is a good opportunity to engage with your local councillor. So again, in the workshop, it's an opportunity to speak to your councillors before, after the meeting and so on, and an opportunity to ask questions there. And the interactive side of the workshop, which I've touched on. And then having services here, so whether that's to deal with any issues, to consult, or as we had today, to share information or to gather feedback. So I think they're some of the positives that we've learned so far from the meetings. There have been some challenges, and as I touched on there, the governance element is very formal, so you'll see here the members of the committee sat across the front here, so it can create a bit of a barrier and maybe is not the best way in terms of engagement and consultation. We have challenges in locations, and that's twofold. One is trying to find venues in those wards that are suitable, that are accessible, but also thinking about, we're in Bayton now, would somebody from Mosborough travel to here, would somebody from Burley travel to here? You know, it's not always the easiest, and this is not as geographically challenging. I was in North area on Tuesday, and you've got like Stocksbridge to High Green to Stannington, you know. So there are some challenges there logistically in terms of moving them around the ward, so we want to have a look at that. Attendance varies. I mean, it's fair to say there are probably more officers here tonight than there are members of the public. That's not always a bad thing, because it is an opportunity for networking and engaging in that local area, but actually the purpose is about engaging local people. So is that hitting the theme that we want to do there? The timings of the meetings, obviously this time, 6:30 to 8:30, it works for some people, not for others, so it's going to immediately rule out, and it's going to be a barrier for some people to attend the meetings. We do webcaster meetings, as you may have picked up, but the viewing figures are very low, whether that be people watching live or people that watch back, and we suspect that most of the people that are watching that are actually officers of the council, so we need to understand that. And that for a council where we have significant budget pressures and financial challenges, we need to consider whether that's the best way to do that, because we want to engage with people, we want to link in with people, but actually if people are saying that's not how we want to do that, then we need to reflect and consider that. And the final point there is, on reflection, very few decisions are actually made at these meetings. So although it's about bringing decision-making to the community, actually the only real decisions are made are if there needs to be a change in chair or vice chair, deputy chair, because the actual chairs are done at the AGM, at the council AGM, and also on spend, which again, currently it's anything over £5,000 comes for a formal decision committee meeting. What we've discovered this year with having the general election is that obviously that's really hamstrung us in not being able to make decisions early, so we're looking at potentially increasing that to 10k, because we've had the consultation like we've done today, so we're getting ideas from people about what we want to spend that 100k that we've got per lac on, but actually the decisions can then be made and we can get on with some of that work rather than having to wait for the formal council process. So the actual decisions aren't working in the way that we'd envisaged. The other thing I want to mention as part of this is around community engagement. So I'm sure not many of you will have read this, but we are in our Strategy and Resources Committee, there's been some discussions around Future Sheffield. And Future Sheffield is about looking at the shape of Sheffield City Council as an organisation to deliver for the people of Sheffield. And one strand of that Future Sheffield is around community engagement. So this particular meeting, that's an aspect of that. So what we're going to be doing is linking in what we do from a local area committee perspective into the wider council's engagement, strategy, community engagement, and thinking about how that works. I just want to flag that to people that that's something that we are looking at as an organisation. But specifically today, the conversation that we want to have is around these public meetings that we're holding. So we're going to do this slightly differently to what it says on the slide, but basically we want to hear your views, so that's members of the committee and also members of the public and officers, anybody who's come along today and given up their time. We're really interested to understand your views. We want to think what works well in these meetings, what you think can be improved, and ultimately your views on is this the right approach to engage in power-enabled communities. You know, what I will say is that the local area committee team, you've heard from Jane, you've heard from Courtney today, and Scott's here as well. They do a lot more than just this public meeting, and I think it's worth reflecting on that. And actually, what I would say is a lot of time goes into planning and preparing these meetings, and the question for me is, are we getting enough value out of that time that goes into it? Would the team be better spent doing other things in the community and other activities? So that's what we want to, but obviously we don't just want to change things without coming out to people, discussing, getting views, and starting that ball rolling in terms of discussion with the committee, with communities about what is the best way for us to engage, what is the best way for local area committees to support the community, to spend the funds that we've got and deliver for the people of Sheffield. So I'll hand over now to any questions from anybody.
Okay, so having listened to that, has anyone got any questions or any ideas? Yes?
I've been to quite a lot of different sort of like in my role as a area outreach rep. So I've been to South East, I've been to East, I've been to Central, so they're all sort of run quite differently. East is really good in that they do actually offer food. I'm not saying like a proper buffet. So as daft as that might sound, it does actually attract people. Pardon? It is a great hook for people. Central is really good in that they've got Changing Sheffield, the actual their sort of communication that goes out to everybody that's sort of based in the central LAC. So their sort of like their LAC meetings are really, really well promoted in that you don't have to hunt them out. I find that with South East, you do actually have to hunt it out. If you're not sort of like, I know, you know, Mike, this gentleman here, come to them all basically, but because you've got a vested interest. And I think that you need to really, really promote South East LAC meetings a lot heavier than that's actually done at the moment. And I absolutely agree with that. I have to put it out, and it was only sanctioned on LAC meetings next week. Sorry, I've got a bad throat. I agree with that. I don't think it's well promoted, and you do have to hunt it out. And it had completely gone off my radar, and it was only Sandra saying, "Are we going?" that we realised that we knew that the meeting was coming. I think, from our point of view, having access to, you know, Scott's been brilliant, and a lot of you guys have been brilliant helping us. I mean, you know what we've been through at Althorpe. Has it worked well for us? Absolutely. It's been, rather than trying to go into the council and trying to find somebody to work with, having access to people's been brilliant for us. Can it be improved? Yes, I think it's definitely not advertised well enough. This was really hard to find tonight. We didn't know where to come, and maybe 4 times a year, maybe it could be 3 or 2 times a year, and have an online version. I don't know, but I do feel that it's been a bit of a game changer for us having access to, you know, to people in the council rather than say going in trying to get into the main council.
Thank you for that. Some good comments. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I just think it's worth responding on a couple of those points. So I think, I suppose I take on board the feedback around the communication, and myself and the team will look at that about how we can raise the profile of that. I will touch on the East point, where East do put food on. I would say that East is probably the lowest attended out of all the like meetings, even when we've got food on. So we can say that, put that forward as an item for consideration. But I would reflect that having going around like yourself, going around the public meetings, I don't think that really is a deciding factor. So I think it might be something we could consider, and I think it's done in the welcome places. But I think I've been to some of the East meetings where we've had 2 or 3 people there. So I think that's the challenge there. I think Central is a different case in point. I think it is challenging in the South East, whereas Central has got that network within the city centre, which I think, again, we need to think about how we can encourage people who attend this meeting to get their messages out there as well. So we can speak to the local councils, think about how we get that. So I think there is more work we can do to potentially promote. And I think the other thing I'd reflect is that if we're the lady there who said around actually it's been a really good opportunity, that doesn't necessarily need to be in this formal setting either, does it? It needs an opportunity for you to be able to link with your council in different ways. So some of the things really work well here, like the workshops. From my perspective, is like, do we need this formality, and how do we try and overcome some of that so that it actually is meaningful engagement as opposed to the formality and trying to do it on that way. So I just want to respond on a couple of those.
Councillor Horner.
Yes, it's worth saying on behalf of our staff, I think there have been problems with getting some of the Facebook groups to take the adverts for these events, for instance. So you're absolutely right, it's hard to find out these places. It's also worth saying that obviously we've had a problem this year because we had not just a local election, but a general election, so we've had a bit of a hiccup because you can't have meetings with officers. The council rules are we cannot have meetings with officers, the public and councillors during election period, so we've gone off the boil a bit for at the start of this cycle. So we'd welcome any suggestions, and anybody who's got access to places where we can put adverts, please let Scott and the team know, because we're quite happy to do that. But it is true that some of the Facebook groups have not agreed to take the adverts for the events, which is a bit sad.
The lady at the back.
Respond to your comment about actually we could contact the councillors. We could, and we did. But the fact that this is a formal setting made a big difference to us. So I do disagree with your comment on that.
No, that's fine. Obviously, I mean, what we'd be looking at potentially is how we do. But that's valuable feedback. So actually, like I say, if that's the opportunity, I mean, my only other point to that would be you shouldn't have to come to a formal meeting to be able to engage with councillors. So that's something for us to look at and reflect. So yeah.
Councillor Norris.
I was just thinking from tonight, like, there's lots of good ideas around here. How could we go to places where people already meet? You know, like the mother and toddler groups. I finally got into one of our local secondaries, and I'm going to do a meeting a term where parents and teenagers can see me. And I think we've got some really great community development workers. Like, could we take all the ideas we've got in sort of clusters where they belong to each other and say, well, this was what they thought of at the meeting. What do you think of that? You got anything to add? Would you change it? And then that might mean, you know, if you could say to the parent and toddler group, oh, well, we did this on such and such a night. There's going to be another one come November. Do you want to come to that one? I don't know, something like that, about getting a dialogue going between what happens here and places where people already meet.
Any more questions? Yes.
Just a comment on what Alison's just said. I just really think that's an excellent idea to sort of like feed through to parents, through the children. Like up at Westfield School, they have I know they've got the school council, and I know at some of the other schools they have prefects. And I think that's the best base of actually reaching parents, is actually through the children themselves or through the young people.
Two people on this table.
Just very much on Alison's point about meeting people where they are. You say that your key issue at the top of the list is antisocial behaviour, and we're down the back of a dark alley on a late evening where people don't necessarily know where we are. Meeting people where they already are gathering has always got to be, for me, the way that you engage with people. So it's your welcome places, it's your community cafes, it's your schools, it's all of those places where people are already gathering, where people have got opinions that really would like to express them. So any community events, that's where you really do get really honest information from people. So all of the questions that we've asked tonight around environment, you could take that into a dozen different places on our area. Health centres, churches, and ask the same questions, and you would get a much wider view, because everybody in this room is already very engaged. People, it's not that other people are disengaged, it's that they're cooking tea for their kids at the moment, or actually that it's dark, they don't really want to come out, or they don't really know Baton, or they're coming on a bus and wouldn't have a clue how to get here. There's lots of reasons that people are not coming to these meetings, which means that the effort has got to be from the other side to take the meeting to the people where they already are.
I've got other people first, Councillor.
My point was very similar, because my background was libraries, and we used to regularly have roadshows. So you'd have somebody doing your blood pressure, you would have food on, some nice fruit and stuff, things that people aren't used to seeing. Councillors would be there, Viola would be there, Amy would be there, Housing were there, and they were always really, really well attended. So when you have got the hooks to grab people, you know, they might not want to go into a pharmacy to have the blood pressure taken, but they'll have it there when they're eating a piece of fruit.
I've been to two of these meetings now. This is my second one, and I have to say that I felt that I've got a lot more out of this one than I did out of the one in March was it? I feel that a lot of people will be quite intimidated by coming into a meeting like this and seeing all of you sitting in front of us like that, and the way it was at the last meeting, there was an awful lot of presentations that went on and on and on and on, and most people wouldn't understand a word of what you were saying or not understand the significance of it. Whereas I think if we're having round table discussions, it's a bit more speaking to the people and less intimidating. But it's how do we get that message across, that's how the meetings are, and that we want to hear your views, and we want you to discuss and sit down with your councillors and talk about issues in the area. And I also think in terms of venue, you really need somewhere with parking that's easily accessible, that people aren't scared of going into, whether it be a school like it was last time, because that was much more well attended, wasn't it, in the school? And people know where it is, it's easy to find, plenty of parking, and it makes people feel more comfortable to go there.
Some good advice there. Have you want to say anything, Carl?
No, thank you. I think, just again, I think they're really important points. I think it's back to the thing I said in the slide was around location as a challenge, because if we're trying to find equity in going around the wards, it's fair to say we've got different relationships in some different schools. Westfield, is that technically in Baton Ward, I think? So we'd have to engage with the schools, but obviously with them, some of them being academies, they're not always willing. We are quite tight on the dates that we can do, so we can't have two public meetings on the same. So these are some of the challenges. Whereas actually, if we did look at doing it in a different way, we could do some of those things you're talking about, and that's where we're really keen to try and explore that. So that's really valuable feedback, and I think for somebody who's been to 2 meetings, I'm really pleased that you've got some value out of this one, because I think I've sat through some of the presentations and they can be a challenge, and I've just delivered one.
Councillor Crossman.
Thank you, Chair. I think as a councillor, weirdly, these are my favourite meetings, and I think they're some of the most valuable meetings, particularly this type of sitting down, talking to people, and having more time to get those ideas, because we do get that £100,000, and while it might not be enough, £100,000, we can actually see a project from start to finish, and I think that's really valuable as a councillor and as members of the public as well, that you can raise something one meeting, and it will probably take far longer than we ever want it to take, but you can see that eventually being delivered. And And so I think LACs and these meetings are so valuable for the community. And I think we've spent a bit of time saying not enough people are coming, but people still are coming. And would they attend a full council meeting or another town hall meeting if these meetings didn't exist? And so while we might not be getting 100 people here, we are getting some people, and that's better than nothing. I completely take the point about the venue. I think, unfortunately, Bayton Miners was booked up, wasn't it? And that has a car park, which would have been better, but whatever, we're still here now. And I also think it's quite... Some of the stuff on the agenda is very formal and boring, and we have, like, exclusion of press and the public and stuff. It means nothing to normal people. But I think having a formal meeting is also important, because I've been to these sort of informal meetings like Bayton Gala and things where we meet people in the community. People raise something, and if I don't write it down instantly, I forget it. Whereas with these formal meetings, I can watch back and say, oh yeah, that was a good issue. We need to pick that up as councillors. So I think it also benefits me, being a bit selfish about it. But I think having things written down and formalised probably also gives members of the community value as well, knowing that what they've said has been noted and been minuted and will be actioned. So I think there is value in the formality, but it probably can be slimmed down a bit.
Thank you. Councillor Downing.
Thank you, Chair. I really wanted to take on the point that the lady over here raised, and that is the roundtable discussions. They seem to be very, very valuable, and most people seem to enjoy that, and there's so much we get out of that. And with the councillors going around the tables as well, that also gives them an opportunity. If there's any questions they need to ask, they can do. In regards to venues, I know it's so difficult. I mean, they have great difficulty in getting venues. And, of course, the Bayton Miners Welfare would have been ideal. But, again, we've got the issue of transport, you know, and people that haven't got cars, how do they get here if they can't get a lift? Or, you know, that's another issue, and that's something that obviously needs to be taken on board. I do know that the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority are looking at bus franchising, which is something that would help, but that's going to be a good few months down the line yet before that's actually brought in. But those are the things that I think, but to get the message out there is very important. And when I go to coffee mornings in my ward, I try and get the message out there. But, you know, but like I said, if people haven't got transport, sometimes it's difficult to get. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. It's with regards to advertising the LACs. And I know Housing did this, and they had a very, very good response quite a few years ago. But when the LAC has been decided, and the venue, and the date, why don't you have a stand outside the supermarkets? You've got Sainsbury's, Asda, Morrison's. You could just have a table and people will stop and you can explain what it's about, what the, you know, they can tell you what the beef is and say, well, come along to this meeting, da-di-da-di-da. You could even have a map of where it is, a little handout, but it does work. People do stop. You've got a guaranteed audience.
Thank you. There's been some really good ideas this evening, and I thank you all for your input. And I think personally it's been invaluable to us this evening. We've learnt such a lot. I'm now going to move on the agenda to public questions. Is there anyone here called Sandra Fretwell-Smith? Sandra, I'm going to let you ask your own question.
Hello, my name's Sandra Fretwell-Smith and I'm here representing Woodhouse Prize Band. We're one of the oldest brass bands in the country, established in 1853, and have rehearsed and played in the village of Woodhouse for 171 years. We've been in continuous existence throughout this time, despite 2 world wars and a pandemic, and we are very, very proud of our heritage. Through circumstances beyond our control, we find ourselves in the position of having to relocate to a new rehearsal room. This is no small task for a brass band, as we have instruments, stands, chairs, percussion, music, uniforms that all take up space, and we need a reasonable amount of space to set up for our rehearsals. We really don't want to move our rehearsals outside of Woodhouse, as the village residents have always been very supportive and loyal to us, for which we are ever grateful. We have been in our current rehearsal room now for 30 years and are looking for a long-term rental option for the future. The band is 100% self-funded, funded income coming from players, annual subs and the many concerts we put on in Woodhouse and beyond throughout the year. Though we have very kindly received grants from the Ward Pot and the Woodhouse Community Forum over the last few years for various projects. I'm sure the Woodhouse councillors would not want to lose such a long-standing community group with its history so immersed within the village of Woodhouse. Over the 171 years of our existence, we have taught hundreds of people, young and old, to play brass instruments and enabled them to experience the joy of making music together in what we consider a friendly family atmosphere. We provide instruments and can provide tuition to our learner players should they need it, and have recently set up a learner band to ensure the band continues long into the future. I would like to ask the councillors of the South East Lac if they know of any suitable venues in Woodhouse that the band could rent long term and at a cost that the band can reasonably manage within our financial means. The question is largely aimed at the Woodhouse councillors, but as reluctant as we are to do this, we may have to look elsewhere in South East Sheffield, and no venue within the South East wards can be discounted at this point in time. I might add, though, I think our band president has already been in contact with Councillor Alison Norris, and we've come up with a few suggestions.
Can I ask you where you are at the moment, then? I'm not sure. I don't want to say that publicly because they're currently in the process of deciding what to do, and they haven't really made it public knowledge yet, but it is in Woodhouse.
As somebody who lived in Woodhouse for many years before I moved to Mosborough, I do know your band and knew people that played in it. I think it's invaluable to not just Woodhouse, but the whole of Sheffield. But I take your point about Woodhouse. So I think it's a discussion, really, with councillors at the end of the meeting.
Yes.
If that's okay?
Yes, I'll catch you with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say how important it is that these kind of things carry on. The brass band's dying out. I've been a brass band player for most of my life. I don't play anymore now, but I have played with Woodhouse under Dennis Corkwell. Just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Quick.
Just that we really value it. You know, it's and especially, you know, with the learner band, it's been handed down through the generations, and we'll work something out.
Moving on, we have a question from Jessica Knight. A couple of years ago and last year, there were a couple of pieces of equipment bought, speed gun and a drone, both for the police. Please can you provide statistics of their use and benefit for our community when our priorities are, sorry, I've got that wrong, when our priorities going to be set for up and coming year, please. So the response to that is the South East Neighbourhood Police Team use both the speed gun and the drone on frequent basis. A number of officers have been trained to use both sets of equipment. 3 pieces for the speed gun and 3 policemen have received training for the drone and have a licence for the drone. The speed gun has been used to target areas where the drivers are known to speed, and subsequent action has been taken. Safety cameras and partnerships as well, who will then issue the relevant warnings to the predators. We are also trying to set up a community speed watch scheme throughout the area. The drone has had a lot of success. The neighbourhood police team are regularly deployed with the drone for antisocial behaviour, ORB's operations, and I've lost my trail, intelligence gathering, great attempts and warning. The priorities for the South East have continued from last year. There are crime and community safety, environment, children and families, health and well-being. We are currently looking at projects that address these themes. If you have any thoughts or ideas for these projects, please contact us either via your local councillors or the local LAC. I don't think Jessica's here tonight, but I'm sure she'll get a response. Mr. Meredith, I'm going to read your questions, but I could ask you to ask them. But there are parts of your question that we cannot address this evening. So if you could ask question 1 first, and then move to question 5.
What I was thinking is all that paper. I was thinking that I've emailed it to all councillors to have a look at and leave that with you. All I was thinking is perhaps, as I'm not very good at speaking because I'm deaf, I've asked Rowan if she can just read this update. Would that be okay?
I can do that for you.
Oh yeah, if you read it. Thank you. It's just it's just that short one. It's just giving information. It's that extra.
That's different. That's different to what we've got on the site. So we had 6. Sorry, Ms. Meredith, you sent 6 questions in, so we've got those listed. But what you've got down there, we haven't received.
You've not. I've handed that in to you, haven't I?
Yes, but that's too short notice for us to respond.
Oh yeah, all it is that is just an update.
Right.
So what I'm thinking is if we just read that so everybody understands and knows about it, don't expect a response.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I may, Chair, on the 6 questions that you've sent in, we will get you a response.
Yeah, I mean...
They're very detailed questions, and I'll need to go to different services and external organisations to perhaps get the answers, but we will get you a response.
I must say this is the 4th time I've sent information and I've been told that you will write to me and you haven't written to me at all, ever.
Right,
I mean, that wants to be on the tape.
Okay. These 6 questions, that's the first time that they've come into the lab, the ones that we've got.
But from previous ones.
Yeah. My understanding for previous questions is that you have received responses. But I
most
can
definitely
check that.
have not received responses. The one that I sent to Kirk. Kirk?
Curtis.
You know, for the...
Councillor Crossman.
Curtis, sorry. No. Curtis. Do you remember I brought one into the last meeting and you said we have to put a revised one? I've sent the revised one to everybody as well.
Thank you for that.
So I need that one. So the thing is, can you just read this one? If not, we can go back to the full one. These questions this time I've asked you under the Freedom of Information Act because you've not responded before. So the questions will want answering. Under the Freedom of Information Act, I want the answer.
Is it the update regarding the sinkhole?
Yeah, that's all that is. That's just a little update.
Okay.
It's just a single page.
Yeah. Okay. This is the update, and this is from Mr. Meredith for our information. Regarding the 200-foot sinkhole found in Burley Woods, just behind Burleymore Garden Centre, it is believed the sinkhole may lead to a Dent Main colliery. The 15th hole in the Burleymore Golf Course stands approximately 650 feet above sea level. Burleymore Garden Centre stands approximately 438 feet above sea level, and a difference of 212 feet. In the wet conditions, rain and water cascade down from Burleymore Golf Course and floods Moore Valley Road. Some of the water funnels down the culverts into the Ockerdike, but the drains cannot cope with the vast volumes of water. So water pours onto Althorpe Heritage and Natural Trail. Yeah? We can all see what happens to water above ground, but what happens underground? Feedback from mines explain that when a drift mine collapses, it can stretch for miles underground. How safe are the flooded mine workings in Althorpe? We are looking to find out more information about the flooded collieries that run under Althorpe. Has anybody got a copy of the plans of the workings of the collieries that we could print online so that residents at Althorpe can see exactly what may be happening under their properties? We are looking for underground maps of exactly where coal was extracted from, Dent Mains and Moore Hull collieries. We are aware that water had to be pumped out of the collieries into Ockerdike when the collieries were open to stop the mines from drowning. How is the water pumped out of the collieries after they closed? And who is responsible? We have asked the Environment Agency about Ockerdike in a video, and then there's a website. They say this site is 1.5 metres understream of the main river. Environmental Agency maintain rivers. The river here is classed as an original watercourse and will be responsibility of Sheffield City Council. The first Sheffield South East Local Committee public meeting after the sinkhole was reported on the 12th of September 2024. We have submitted a report and question, and we hope to have some answers. A big thank you to all who have provided information. Obviously, we can't comment on any of that, but what we can say, we will try and find information that you're asking. Okay.
I mentioned to you earlier, I think that the coal board are responsible, but in my communications with them, they think not. They sent me to the Environment Agency. They've sent me back to you. Everybody's playing at kick the ball around, so I'd like the council to sit on them both.
You'd like us to kick it round a bit more?
No. Yeah, good idea.
We'll do our best. We can't make any promises, but we'll do our best.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's no more written questions, but are there any questions from the floor? No? Yeah, so we're now going to get a budget report from Jane Foles.
Thank you, Chair. So I think it was mentioned earlier, it's the first opportunity we've had since this financial year to bring to a meeting and for members to agree on the spend of the £100,000 that I talked about earlier, the project. So you've got the report in front of you, and the recommendations are that the South East Local Area Committee agrees the recommendations set out for the use of the 2024-25 budget that addresses local priorities in the South East LAC. So just for reference, those were, I mentioned them earlier, it was crime and community safety, and the recommendation is that we attach £50,000 of that to that theme, the environment theme, and that we attach £17,000 to that theme, and then the children and families and health and well-being, there's £15,000 attached to each of those themes. That would add up to £97,000, and the remaining £3,000 is attached to administrative responsibilities for administering the LAC. So that's the first recommendation. The second part of that is that you, as a local area committee, authorise myself, in consultation with the local area committee chair, to finalise any eligibility criteria and make any decisions following engagement with the relevant ward members on the award of any grant funds. And the proposal is that that potentially could be up to £5,000. So just as an explanation, we discussed the option of, I think somebody mentioned earlier, we're already halfway through the year, we're at September. Our financial year runs to the end of March. So we've got a very short window of time where we can deliver projects that obviously the local communities want to see. So this gives you the option, if you want to explore that, that we can go out to grant funding and people and communities can make a bid towards that £100,000. And then lastly, that as a committee, you authorise myself, along with the local area committee chair. Previously, and Carl made reference to this earlier, there was, we had the authority to make decisions up to £5,000 without having to bring it to a local area committee, public meeting. The request is that we raise that amount if we need to £10,000. So if we were looking at a project, I'll give you an example of that. Previously, when we looked at, I think it was the drone, and when we looked at the mobile camera that we'd use, we had to wait for a public meeting to be able to get that passed before we could order it. So that just allows myself and the chair, if that's the case, obviously in consultation with yourselves at our informal meetings, it just raises that barrier from 5,000 to 10,000. So those are the three recommendations that I'm asking for approval for.
Councillors, do you agree, please? Yeah, no objections?
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to the end of me. It does.
So that brings us to the end of tonight's meeting. I'd like to say thank you very much to all of you for coming. Please come again and bring a friend, and let's have twice as many people here. Thank you very much. Take care and a safe journey home. Thank you.
Thank you.